Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Travel. My name is Gary Arndt, coming to you from the wilds of northern British Columbia, just having come back from the wilds of the Northwest Territory, where I got to visit beautiful Nahanni National Park, a place where only 800 people a year actually get to visit. With me again, as usual, and also from a hotel room, Mr. Chris Christensen. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm coming to you from the wilds of Louisiana. Because when you think about where you want to go in the summer for a conference, Louisiana always tops the list.
Where in Louisiana exactly?
Lake Charles, which is halfway between Texas and New Orleans.
And what's the conference?
TMS, the Travel Media Showcase.
Oh, yeah. I get emails about that thing, but I've never actually gone. How is it?
I haven't either. It starts tomorrow. I'll tell you later.
Okay. Also with us as usual is the lovely Jen Leo.
Good morning, everybody. I'm in Carlsbad and headed to Maui on Monday.
You're always in a different room every time you come in from your house. I don't ever recall seeing this stuff in the background.
Oh.
Maybe she redecorates every week.
No. This is the living room, but I'm not going to show it off. I find corners that do not have a whole heaping amount of toys or rooms without people in them.
I just find camera angles that don't show the unmade hotel bed. So.
Also with us for the very first time is our guest, Matt Vilano. He's the senior editor of the Expedia Viewfinder blog. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Chris.
And where are you coming from?
Right now I'm in what I like to call the Lair, which is my home office in Healdsburg, California. And behind me, on the other side of the closed door, my wife and children are frantically gathering items to bring with us for a week in Disney World. We leave tomorrow.
Wow, what a treat.
Yes, we are. I'm excited. My wife, I would say, is more excited than I, but no one in this house is as excited as my two children, who are 5 and 2.
Do they have anything they're looking forward to? Any particular characters they want to meet?
Well, we're springing a little bit of a surprise on them, a bit of a princess makeover, but they don't know that that's happening. So I guess what they're most excited about is the opportunity to meet Elsa and Anna, which I know Jen can certainly understand, considering that she also has a young female human in her house. But yeah, they're pretty stoked. That'd be putting it mildly.
Elsa,
I don't know what that
right
is.
now. I'm hearing lines of an hour long to meet the two princesses from Frozen.
oh no, you can pre-book this stuff now, Chris. You book princess lunches. It sounds like Matt's doing a makeover. Does that mean they're going to dress them up and do their hair and everything?
Yeah, we're going from makeup to a princess tea. It's a whole Thursday. I will be by noon. I will be so princessed out that I'll be ready for a double shot of bourbon and some quality time in front of the television at a sports bar or something.
I believe that was also in Frozen.
What's that?
That was also in Frozen.
Yes.
The DVD edition, though.
Hey guys,
we're looking forward to it because Disney's been doing a bunch of stuff for preschool age kids, and that's actually why we're going to check out all the upgrades and improvements and additions they've made for super young kids. Because most people don't realize that a lot of the stuff there is geared toward kids who are 6 and older, and I've got 2 kids under the age of 5, so I'm pretty excited.
Dumbo, for instance.
Yes.
hey guys, tell Matt about the Joe's podcast. Isn't his name Joe? With the Disney World.
Lou.
Lou. That's right, Lou. Sorry, not Joe.
We're trying to think of who Joe is. Yeah, Lou Mongello does WDW Radio, which is the preeminent travel podcast in terms of and Disney.
Sorry, Lou.
Well, I've spent the last week driving around the woods in northern Canada without internet access. So, Chris, what are the news stories you want to talk about this week? Oh, and I woke up literally 30 minutes ago when the fire alarm in my hotel went off. So I haven't showered. I haven't done anything. This is literally my fresh out of bed look.
Well,
Looks about the same,
You
Gary.
know what would really be good for you right now would be a sauna. And if you're traveling, it's the same sort of thing. You're traveling all night, flying to, let's say, Finland, and you get to the airport and you think, what I could really use now is a sauna. And so Finland has opened up in their airport a unisex sauna in the new airline lounge. So towels optional, I believe. So Gary, are you booking a trip to Finland?
I wasn't planning on it, but who knows now? Actually, I guess you just don't even need to go to Finland. You could just sort of, transfer in Finland.
Transfer in Finland, that's right. It's the Finnish experience. So it's interesting to me that we're starting to see some personality in some airports. And, I was just in Dallas Airport for 5 hours yesterday, and you really it's nice if there's something there that's not just a Starbucks and the same thing you see in every other airport. So I applaud them for their Finnish sauna.
So Matt and Jen, would you go to a unisex sauna, period, and then at an airport? I guess would be the follow-up question.
Well, I've been to a unisex sauna in Finland before. I was on an assignment researching some researchers of whales, and whales the animal, not the country. And one night after a long day on the boats, everyone said, "Oh, we're going to the sauna." And I, this being my first experience, didn't know what that entailed. And about 10 minutes later, there I was in my underwear with all of the other researchers in their underwear in this giant sauna that was about -10 outside. And it was pretty neat. So yes, I would go to a Finnish sauna in general, but in an airport, I'm not so sure. I mean, airports bring out the very worst in people at times, and I'm not quite sure I'd want to see the very worst in people half naked. But I think given the right circumstances, I might be willing to give it a try. I certainly would not do that with my children, and I fly with my children quite a bit, so I definitely would save that for one of the grown-up only trips. How about you, Jen?
I think I'm gonna pass. Just gonna pass. Not interesting to me. Not interested in. The thing about airports for me is getting from one place to another. I'm already highly distracted by all the souvenir shops, and I need to load up on magazines and this and that, and the actual physical act of putting all your stuff in a locker room and taking your clothes off and going in the sauna and then having to be on time and get all your stuff back together. It just sounds like more of a chore. It sounds like it would be adding to the chore rather than relaxing me.
Chris, to your point, though, this morning my local independent coffee shop wasn't open when I went out for my caffeine, so I had to go to Starbucks, and I overheard a bunch of cranky old men talking about their recent trip to London, and one of the guys brought up something that I didn't actually notice when I lived there last year, which was that apparently there's nowhere in the airport to get fish and chips. He was really adamant in his complaints about this to his friends, and I started thinking about it, and I went through Heathrow a number of times while we lived there, and I did not see a place to get fish and chips at the airport. So to your point, Chris, yes, personality in airports is a good thing, and I certainly would be open to embracing more of it.
Wait a second, wasn't there some Boddington pub?
Maybe there was. I didn't see one.
Probably depends
Obviously,
on your
this
terminal.
guy didn't see one because he was really yelling about it in the Starbucks. But the bottom line is, everyone who flies into Heathrow should know that there are ample opportunities to get fish and chips. Just like you fly into an airport in Canada and there's a Timmy Hortons. I mean, it should be as prevalent as the security checkpoint. But I guess for this guy it wasn't, and he had me thinking, and I also never saw one.
Well, I would just like to say every airport in Wisconsin has beer. We got that taken care of.
Well, what about cheese, Gary?
Yeah, actually, you can find cheese curds in most airports in the gift shop. So I know, like when you fly into the Outagamie County Airport, which is the airport near where my mom lives, they'll always have like a gift shop with cheese curds and other cheese-type gifts available. So, yes, and remember, eat them squeaky.
I didn't even know what that means.
When you get
so hot and greasy, right?
you want to let them get to room temperature, and when you eat them at room temperature, they will literally squeak when you chew them, and that is the optimal temperature to eat them at when they squeak in your mouth. Squeaky cheese.
All right. Good to know. Another thing that is good to know, there is an article that was posted on Outside Online this week that was your travel photos may kill rhinos.
Well,
and basically someone was saying that in a safari vehicle there was a sign, please be careful when posting photos on social media, they can lead poachers to our rhino. Turn off the geotag feature and do not disclose where the photo was taken.
Yeah, I think the thing that the people have to know is it's not the photo per se. It's basically just saying, we saw a rhino at this spot, and the further away you get in time from having taken the photo, the less of a risk it is. Is that if you're posting a photo, say, immediately, that day, the rhino may still be there that day. If you post it a month later, it's probably not that big of a deal.
Definitely not something I'm worried about. I'm worried about the, hey, if you take a picture of your kid's birthday party, Jen, you know, and you forget to turn off the geotagging, you've just told everybody where you live. But
well, I mean, I'm sure somebody could hack into whatever my geotagging is, but when I post in Facebook, it says I'm somewhere that's 20 minutes from my house. So I don't know if they only do that for houses. Do they do that for your guys's when you post? I don't know what I clicked, but I don't know what I clicked for them to, I guess, camouflage where I live, but they say I'm somewhere else. Only for my home, only for my house. I don't notice it when I'm posting from other places.
Within the photo sometimes, there's what's called EXIF data, and that has things like the name of the camera, the aperture, shutter speed. It also has GPS data. So sometimes it can be embedded in the photo whether or not you know it.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I'm
depending on your camera.
Yeah, I apologize about that if that's my camera here. But this is one of the reasons I'm completely neurotic about privacy regarding my kids on the web. I still have not posted a photograph that it shows the fronts of my kids' faces, just because, you know, you never know. You never know who's going to get that data. You never know what they're going to be up to. Obviously, you know, when we talk about our kids, it's a little bit different than talking about rhino poaching. But you know, the potential evil in both situations is exactly the same. And you know, for me, the lesson is you can never be too careful.
All right. Well, let's hope nothing ever happens to me.
Well, the cover photo of Amateur Traveler this week is my two kids at Disney World. But as Gary said, if you allow a little time between you post it, my kids are both no longer at Disney World, and it turns out they're way no longer that age. Long time ago.
Cora just asked me. Oh, are we off here?
We've had terrible lag problem. I hope this comes out okay.
How do we fix this?
We don't.
Just fight through it.
Okay. Well, Cora's been watching. Nickelodeon.
Does everybody have earbuds on?
Yeah, but it's hard for me to talk when I'm hearing my voice as I'm talking. Anyway, Cora wants to be a TV star now, and so I told her I consider her.
Matt, do you have your phones in, and Gary? Because we've got an echo.
You do.
I can grab them.
Yeah. And this is fine quality audio entertainment.
Sounds like it fixed itself, by the way.
Yeah, no, Gary just put on his headphones. The other story that we had that we wanted to talk about is there are bloggers who are getting sued usually in European courts and often French courts for their reviews. Can a blogger be fined for ruining a business? And the answer, according to European courts, again, more specifically French, is yes. If you put in a bad review, there are people taking legal actions against people who have filed bad reviews for their restaurants. Would you worry about that or not?
There was one travel blogger who got sued for a bad hotel review in the UK. Darren Cronin, I don't know if you remember that. It was several years ago. But he basically stopped blogging. Libel laws in the UK can be very draconian. And if you have an opinion or if you have the truth on your side, that does not necessarily help you in Europe.
Right. Yeah, that's, I think, the interesting thing for those of us here in the U.S., where if you're telling the truth and you don't have, and you're not trying to hurt somebody, you're just telling the truth that I had a bad meal, then you are protected by U.S. law. But what we're seeing now more and more in Europe is, well, sure, you had a bad meal, but why should your one bad experience ruin this business? Is that reasonable or not?
No, but that's Europe. When in Rome.
I think there's ways of giving a review that has constructive criticism and having it be balanced and making it sound like you're a sane person rather than just spewing out hatred. So I think if you're a blogger and you have an interest in writing a helpful review and you want whatever bad service that you have to be turned around, there's a way to do it in which you don't have to sound like a crazy
person. I think
person.
You're assuming that the reviews that people are getting sued for sound like crazy reviews.
Are they not?
I don't believe that that's necessarily the case. We've definitely run into that as well, but we've run into people who've had really bad experiences, and they wrote about them. And it might be a way that is completely balanced and fair, and yet they are not protected, is really what's coming up. It's just a very different standard for free speech.
So if the blogger had liability insurance for his business, for his writing business, would that protect him from something like this?
That's a fine question. Do bloggers have liability protection insurance?
If they incorporate, and there's nothing saying they can't go and obtain that. Or if they're an LLC.
I remember looking. The SATW was looking into providing liability insurance, and it was extremely expensive to get because I don't think a lot of people want to insure for that kind of thing. It's not like something which can be an accident. It's something that you pretty much have to willfully do, unlike most things. So it's not something I think that people really want to insure for, and the cost can often be high if you lose.
I had it a while ago. It was way before I was doing an LLC, and I want to say, memory is not clear, but I want to say it was around $400 a year for $1 to $2 million coverage. But that's my memory being stretched.
So the particular case that came up this week, I was just looking at the details. So again, this is something that in the U.S. would be dealt with under the First Amendment, but it wasn't even the content of the post that the judge ruled on. The judge just said because the name of the restaurant was in the review that the blogger, in this case, the blogger just had to change the name of the post because their review, because they were a high-ranking blogger, was showing up high in search results. This is the same thing we're getting into with the EU telling people, telling Google that they have to be able to remove people from their Google search index if they want to have it be removed. They are basically, it's related to some of the privacy things that are going on in that space as well. It's very different rules.
And again, from my perspective, I try and be as aware of this stuff as possible. I think the lesson is just know the rules before you go someplace and do something that ultimately could put you in a position where you are open or potentially liable for some of the cases that like those you're discussing, Chris. I mean, I think you can never know too much about the situation you're going into. It sounds like this is something that Gary really familiarizes himself with before he goes to a new place. And I mean, I think,
not at all. I have no freaking clue what the laws are.
Well, it sounds like you know more than the average person. I mean,
that may be, but yeah, and I think it's impossible to know, to be honest, because
You're changing too
and a lot of
rapidly.
these it's not even laws, it's just court rulings.
Right.
I don't think that this thing in France was a law. It was just some judge that said, you have to do this. And I don't know how any. First of all, I don't know if it applies to me. If my server is located in the United States and I write it in the United States and I'm American and I write about something in France, I don't know what jurisdiction they have. I don't know what they could possibly do. Someone could appeal to Google in Europe or something. They could get sued maybe, but I don't know what action they could really take against me if I'm not in that country at the moment. It would be extremely
That would be interesting to see.
people just think, the only place we really need to worry is Asia, which is not the case. I mean, there are similarly restrictive regulations in other places, and we as Americans, I think, largely take for granted the freedoms that we have to express ourselves.
Right. Well, and
Pretty
just
lucky.
this week, I mean, we've talked about it before on this show, so we won't go into details, but just this week, the Russian law that if you have more than 3,000 followers, you may need to register with the Russian government your blog. Now, it turns out that it looks like the way that's working is they may come to you and say, you have more than 3,000, you have to register, basically just before they throw you in jail, because, we're heading back to the days of the Soviet Union there. But
yeah, the only thing I know is that you should never ever talk about the King of Thailand.
yes, right.
Just don't. Don't say anything. Don't even say anything good. Just don't bother. It's not worth it, because the punishments are so draconian, and it's used as a political tool, not really something that they'll just look and hunt people down. That it's just not worth it. Just
Gary,
never ever even talk
are you
about
just now ruining my trip to Thailand?
it. I don't know. Were you on a vendetta against the king or something?
I just guilt by association. Well, let's.
Um,
I think those are
we-
the stories we had.
Can we do with one more? 'Cause
Yes.
I'm actually here. Just the new UNESCO World Heritage Sites that got picked this year. They just had the annual conference. It was in Doha, Qatar. 26 sites got put on the list this year. Not going to go through every single site. A couple of notable things. There were 26 new sites this year.
You weren't going to do a
Yeah.
humble brag. Been there, done that.
No, actually, I've been to none of these,
Oh,
of the new 26. This is the first time in a while I haven't been to one that had been named. 26 new ones. The 1,000th World Heritage Site was named. That was the Okavango Delta in Botswana, which
Oh, interesting.
probably should have been on the list a long time ago. A couple other notable ones. The Grand Canal in China got put on the list. The Silk Road is put on the list. That was split through 3 different countries. The Inca Trails is put on the list. That got split through 6 different countries. Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And the United States had another one named, which is surprising because we've stopped funding UNESCO. The Poverty Point State Historical Site in Louisiana, probably not far from where you are right now, Chris, was put on the list. So,
Hey Gary,
hopefully
which of the new ones did you most want to go to, or which couple?
Okavango Delta is really high in the list. Everyone I've talked to that has been to the Okavango just says it's absolutely amazing. And I think the reason it wasn't put on the list before this simply was a matter of resources and priority for Botswana. The Great Himalayan National Park in India got put on the list, which I think is really interesting. Poverty Point is actually a place I'm hoping to visit maybe this winter. I might end up flying to Texas.
What is Poverty Point?
It's basically an ancient Indian burial. I shouldn't say a burial mound. It's a kind of an earthworks. Okay. So I want to say it dates back about 10,000 years. From the photos I've seen of it, it's not much to see, but from an archaeological standpoint, it's a lot more important. And it's in the northern, I don't know, part of Louisiana, so not very far away. So I might do a road trip, actually. My assistant Amy wants to come along with her kids, and we'd maybe go to Poverty Point, Hot Springs National Park in Little Rock, and then back to Dallas. And then a lot of other ones that kind of fall into the I've never heard of it before, but it's probably interesting if you visit, which compromises about 80% of all World Heritage sites. And I should note,
one of the things that I find interesting about that list, checking that list before you go someplace, is the places, you to go to Petra when you go to Jordan, but have you heard of that palace in the middle of the desert or someplace like that? And I think that list is a useful tool just to let you know about other places that might be significant.
Oh yeah. Of World Heritage sites that I never would have visited if it weren't a World Heritage site, and I came away really impressed by what I saw, and then I never would have known about it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it may be an industrial site. The Volkingen Ironworks in Saarland of Germany, which was an abandoned steel plant, and I thought it was really neat that this was a World Heritage site. And I can't pronounce this. It's in Wales. The Ponscathalaeth Aqueduct. But anyways, it's a aqueduct that goes 200 feet over a valley, and you can canoe over this aqueduct looking down 200 feet. And it was built in the 19th century, and at the time it was considered like a wonder of the age. And nowadays it's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a cool thing. And there are lots of places like that if you just know they're there, they're worthwhile visiting. And if I may do a humble brag, I just a couple days ago got back from Nahanni National Park in the Northwest Territories, which is one of the original 12 UNESCO World Heritage Sites created in 1978. And with that, I've now been to every World Heritage Site in Canada until I make a new one. And I don't know of anyone else that's done it, but getting to Wood Buffalo and Nahanni up in the Northwest Territories was kind of one of the reasons for this trip. And so, yeah, I got that going for me.
Hey, Gary, is there a UNESCO Heritage coffee table book out yet? Like a photograph?
I'm sure there is. The thing is, I mean, there are probably, I'm sure there are several, but I'm sure they're probably going to look at, the Grand Canyon, the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, all the obvious ones. And like I said, 80% of the list is stuff you've probably never heard of until you actually, go and research it. And it's probably a bigger deal in Europe because Western Europe has about 40% of all of the World Heritage Sites, and you're usually never more than a 1-hour drive from something.
Right.
And so you can always, if you're visiting, we're going to Frankfurt. Well, the Messel fossil pit is a 30-minute drive away south of town, and you might not have known that because it's not a big tourist attraction. Whereas in the U.S., Canada, Australia, you're probably, unless it's your first time there, you're probably going to be quite a drive from something. Anyways, we can continue now.
Okay.
It's my little UNESCO rant.
Jenna, I'm going to switch to you since you invited Matt on. There was a reason you did. Why don't we get to that?
Yes, Matt. So I finally met you at the DMAI conference, and that was so fantastic. I love the way you just sprung up on me out of nowhere. And tell us, and so since then I've been tuning into your daily updates on Facebook, and it seems like you are launching a new product almost every day. or at least this has been an exemplary week for you. Tell us about your books, your new projects, and first, for our listeners, since you're new to the show, a little background on your life as a freelancer.
For sure. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I've been freelancing for 18 years, proudly never had a real job, and started covering travel about 10 years ago. Started covering family travel about 5 years ago when I became a dad. And now I'd say family travel probably represents about 40% of what I do. But I am a huge believer in diversifying as a small business owner. And I think every freelance writer is a small business owner. It's a subject about which I talk publicly quite a bit. And it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. So yeah, I mean, I've got, I write about all sorts of different things, business, technology, gambling, believe it or not, which actually, Jen, I know you can believe since you also write about gambling from time to time. I do some books. My latest guidebook just came out. Actually just got a copy of it last week. It's not due to hit shelves until I think November, but it's from Insight Guides, which is a UK publisher. This is a Hawaii book. It was crazy. I was living in London doing a guidebook on Hawaii in the fall in the UK, so it was cold and rainy, and there I was writing about Maui and Molokai and Oahu. It was a slightly strange experience for me.
No, you did spend some time before that actually in Hawaii, though.
I did, yeah. It wasn't just, it's not fiction. It's a guidebook, yes.
Now, is it an update? Is it an update to a previous guidebook, or were you refreshing work that somebody else had done, work that you had done?
It was both an update and a refresh. The book had not been touched for 5 years.
Oh,
so places like the Aulani on Oahu literally did not exist in the last book. So it was a little bit more comprehensive than an update, but it was not a complete rewrite either. In addition to that, I'm really proud of the work that I've been doing with the Expedia Viewfinder. And this is it's a blog of original travel content from Expedia, and I began that project as a contributor. And this January, I was essentially promoted to senior editor. So I'm the guy who's line editing every story. We publish between 10 and 12 stories a week. We're working with some amazing bloggers, Dave and Deb from the Planet D, Kent and Kanan from NVR, Chris and Tawny from Captain and Clark, as well as folks like Beth Whitman and Cara Williams and Ann Taylor Hartzell and Kate Thomas, and so we've Carol Kane as well is affiliated with the blog. So we've got a real awesome team. I'm honored and really stoked to be working with all of those folks. Quite frankly, as someone who has a lot of experience in traditional journalism, the blogging team that Expedia has assembled really has taught me a lot about blogging, which is kind of cool because I've been blogging for 5 years, again, since I became a dad. Family travel was the first thing I started blogging about. But working with them has really taught me a lot. And so Expedia is a great company to work for, but I think being a part of such an accomplished team really has helped me grow not only as a blogger, but also as a manager. I've never actually had to run a team before, so it's been a cool experience to do that as well.
And I hear that you have a passion for grammar, so maybe that helped with gaining the line editing position.
I am a bit of a grammar freak, yes, and you know, I know Weird Al's new song "Word Crimes" hit the internets a couple weeks ago, and everyone was apparently it hit the #1 about a week after it came out. And any discussion on a national level of improving the way we as a society speak and express ourselves is a discussion that I am very happy to have in any forum.
Now, Matt, you're probably only just starting to know this about me, but grammar is actually my weakness. I really struggle, and when people call me a writer, I think I'm really reluctant to claim that title. More writing is a way for me to be more of a marketing person, I think, or a cheerleader, or hear my own voice, or however, different ways. But as a writer, grammar is my weakest spot.
Well, there's
just confessing to you. Just confessing.
Everyone, there's room to grow, Jen. I mean, come on. Our friendship has only just begun. Hopefully, a year from now, I will have rubbed off on you a little bit, and you'll no longer be dangling modifiers.
You have you know what? You have my permission in every email to tell me what I did wrong. But I do believe I'm contributing to the economy because I hire writers. I hire editors to clean me up before I go to print, except for in the case of the LA Times where they have editors on staff, and thankfully, that's a team effort.
There you go. And
he is excellent at grammar.
Who is Gary?
Me is excellent at grammar. Me do grammar very good.
It's an inexact science, right? And that's why it's something that everyone can continue to learn. And even publications like the New York Times and the LA Times are publishing stories with typos in them, and so it's something that we can all work to get better at. I think for me the whole key is just people caring about it, because so often people will just speak in emoticons and abbreviations, and to me that's not the way to preserve this thing called the English language.
So Matt, speaking of your diversification, I was super excited and interested to hear about your Media Bistro talk that's coming up. Can you tell us what you'll be speaking on, when it is, and if it's available for our listeners to join in?
And
absolutely.
What Media Bistro is?
Yeah, so sure. Media Bistro it's a little bit inside baseball. It's a site and a company devoted to sort of helping people in the media industries learn more about their craft. They've got everything from this wonderful series called How to Pitch, where for freelancers they'll interview an editor at a publication and just talk to that editor about what we as writers or contributors need to know to break into that publication. Well, the speaking series that they've got, this will be the second and third times I've spoken for them. It's part of a seminar they're putting on called Freelancing Bootcamp. So it's a little inside baseball. It's geared toward freelancers. And I'll be speaking about two things. First, I'll be reprising my first talk, which was essentially about branding as a freelancer, building a brand as a freelancer. And that's where I get into a little bit of my soapbox on this whole notion of viewing yourself as a small business and thinking about your message as any small business might, a dry cleaners, a winery, a restaurant, just sort of rethinking your whole strategy as a freelancer there. So that'll be one talk, and then the second talk, which is one that I'm really excited about, is a talk about corporate freelancing and sponsored content.
That's the one I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's something that I've been doing for a while. I really think that that's sort of the next era in terms of opportunities for content creators of any kind, whether it's photos or writing or blogging or what have you. You could call what I'm doing with Expedia as sponsored content. Expedia is paying us to create original and objective content about travel destinations, and I think we're going to see more of it. I think all of the most forward-thinking companies are starting to realize that people will pay extra for that type of insight. And I think, again, from the perspective of freelancers, it really is a green field still at this point. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. And yes, it's open for registration now if people are interested in signing up. I believe the URL is just mediabistro.com/freelancing101. But if that doesn't work, mediabistro.com should be pretty clear. Just follow through to the events link and check it out there. But yeah, Jen, thanks for being excited about it.
When is it?
It's the week of August 18th. My talks are on the 18th and the 20th, and I believe I know there are a number of other talks. Usually the boot camps last about 4 days, and it's a couple hours each day.
Do you remember how much it costs, or if you have to be a member to attend?
You do not have to be a member, though. There is a discount if you join, and I think it's relatively affordable considering that I believe if you pay once, you have access to all of the talks that day, and each day I believe there are 4 talks. So check it out. Again, it's mediabistro.com. It's through the events tab. I could probably get the actual address here in a minute, but yeah.
I love this topic because it's been a different part of my history. I've done some corporate blogging. I've launched some corporate blogs before, and it's such a different dynamic as a writer and as a person working with another team. I wish I could just come up and listen to your speech, because I'd love to hear about your take on the actual experience as a writer, because corporate writing differs so much from writing for a newspaper, from writing for a personal blog, and the emotions and the pay structure and the lifestyle that goes with it are so completely different. Anyway, I want to talk more about this with you later, because it's interesting.
For sure, yeah, and travel is a really interesting subject. If I could just sort of digress here, and maybe I don't know how much more time we've got, but up to this notion of sponsored content, because obviously, especially among the big newspaper sections, you've got issues of ethics and so on and so forth. But if you think about the traditional media model, and you think about who's advertising in some of these publications, I mean, travel, even at the most basic level, travel content is sponsored. You look through the advertisements of a magazine. These are travel destinations, DMOs. They are sponsoring the content itself. Now, there might not be a direct sponsorship, but you've got targeted advertising sponsoring content creation on some level in every media outlet.
I call it money laundering.
There you go.
Because I've had this discussion with writers before, and they're like, "Oh no, there's no influence of anything." I'm like, BS. It's like somehow you tell a blogger getting a hotel room is oh, that's unethical, but getting $100 million from the travel industry is somehow clean and pure. The only difference is you're adding a person in the middle to take the cash. It's like the person in the middle takes the cash from the company and then doles it out to the writers, and then somehow that makes it all okay. But anyways, again, that's a Gary rant. Go ahead.
Theoretically and traditionally, there was the Chinese wall between the publisher and the writer, right? Theoretically, the people who took the money weren't influencing what you were writing about. Now, that happened to varying degrees in varying ways, but yeah, there's always obviously.
Well, when I bring this up, every writer, and this has been a thing on like certain message forums that I've been on. Every writer can pretty much think of an example where that has happened. And if you just look at the fact that the big magazines will have like their annual Hawaii issue.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And the purpose of the Hawaii issue is to sell ads for stuff in Hawaii. Now, it might not be a direct quid pro quo, but obviously the decision to have a Hawaii issue and to write things on Hawaii is made based on selling ads for Hawaii. And likewise, there might be a Europe issue or something like that, or a Caribbean issue. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's all based on ads.
It is a business, yeah.
Anyway,
so, yeah, I agree with you. Continue.
So, Jen, just to follow up, I've finally, my browser cooperated here. So the URL to learn more about those speaking engagements, it's just mediabistro.com/freelancing.
Okay, so I have a question on that topic. I thought about reserving it as a tip, but I have another tip, so we're just going to talk about it now. Have you heard of Contently?
I have.
And have you put up a portfolio there? Do you think it's a handy resource for freelancers?
I have not put up a portfolio there, and at the end of the day, the reason I've not put up a portfolio there is because right now I'm looking at literally a list of Post-its of updates I need to make to my own website. And to me, and of course, I think every busy freelancer would agree that unless you've hired someone to help you, that your own stuff is always at the bottom of the totem pole. And so for me, if I have the free time, that's where I'm going to direct. I mean, my LinkedIn profile still needs to be built out. It's been on my to-do list for the last 2 years. So
right.
For me, if I have free time, it's going to go there and not to something like Contently, where somebody else is going to profit or skim off the top from the work that I'm doing at some level. Whereas, I'd rather take some of that energy and spend it on my own stuff.
So,
which, by the way, my own personal site is whalehead.com.
So for those, Contently, if you were a freelance writer, Contently.net, and check out their page, What is Contently, before you get too involved in it. But essentially, they're connecting brands with freelancers, and freelancers can build a portfolio with the hopes of making a connection, to get some freelance work. They do not guarantee work, and they're not a dating site. But definitely check it out if you're a freelancer who is looking for more work opportunities and open to working with corporations or brands.
Gary, is that you?
What?
Yeah, you're the echo, Gary.
Yeah, I know. My headphones just died.
Oh.
Continue on. I'll be right back.
So, Matt, tell us, okay, so now you also are part of a new project in regards to Explore. Tell us about the work that you're doing with Explore.
Oh my! I'm so
Before we get into that.
Oh.
Whalehead.com.
Yes. So
there was no point in our conversation where I looked at your head and thought, that's a little whale shaped.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and if I turn my computer here, you can see there's whales everywhere in my office. Yeah, I grew up on the North Shore of Long Island, back when there actually were whales that sort of came through there every once in a while, and just fell in love with these animals. I've been sort of really passionate about them since I was 5 or 6, since I was basically the age of my older daughter, and the passion grew as I grew, and when people started buying up domain names, I was looking for something that I could build a brand around. Believe it or not, this was back in 1997, and I was working a contract job at DDB Needham, which actually became DDB Digital while I was there, which is an advertising agency. So of course, I was right in the right spot to think about this. And somebody in the room, it was a pen of writers. Somebody said, "Well, you like whales. If people who like the Grateful Dead can call themselves deadheads, why don't you just call yourself a whalehead?" And 5 minutes later, I own the URL, and I've owned it ever since. In that same room, somebody thought enough to pick up the URL energy.com. Well, he later sold it for $75,000, and I renew my whalehead every year for $35, and no one's ever asked me to sell it to them for any more. So clearly, I could have made a more lucrative decision, but instead, I chose to build my brand around something that would last for me. But,
and did you ever buy MattVillano.com?
I did, yeah. I have it, and I sort of shadow link it to Whalehead. So if someone types in my name, MattVillano.com, it automatically goes to Whalehead. Yeah. And there is another Matt Villano in the media industry. He's a journalist, and he's a photographer, photojournalist, and he takes great pictures. But unfortunately, he'll never get his hands on that URL. But Jen, anyway, so to answer your question, yes, I'm super excited about this new project I'm doing. It's with Explore.org, which is essentially a sister organization of the Annenberg Foundation. It's multimedia effort. They've put dozens and dozens of webcams all over the world, and the idea is basically just to give people a sense of stuff that's happening with animals and nature that people otherwise wouldn't get the opportunity to see. And so this past week they launched a beluga cam up in Hudson Bay, up near the Churchill River estuary, and that's basically the first project I'm working on with them, is creating some written content to sit on the site along with the imagery. And the imagery is absolutely mind-bogglingly, awesomely cool. If you like science, if you like biology, even if you just like flowers and seeing cool stuff in nature, go to the website. It's explore.org. Check out some of the cams. I mean, my kids have just been riveted by this beluga camera because, of course, they see pictures of belugas up in my office, but now they can see them live, and they can see what they do, and they can see what they look like, and it's been a real treat to be a part of it. I'm going to be doing some more work with them, and truthfully, it's sort of like a dream come true because it combines all of my passions into one project, and I'm really enjoying it so far. But we've just begun, so I'll be able to tell you more about it, Jen, the next time we get together and play poker.
And you'll know the answer to this. The trivia for belugas are known as the what of the sea?
Well, the canaries of the sea, of course.
The canaries of the sea. And when we had Mary Beth on, chicken of the sea. No, they taste like chicken. But when we had Mary Beth Bond on Amateur Traveler talking about swimming with the belugas up there in Churchill, she said that when you get in the water, they have you sing to attract the belugas to you.
Wow.
Yeah, the boat operator that I interviewed this week, and this is actually a snippet that will not make it onto the site. So this is breaking news, I guess, or an exclusive, if you will. He was saying that when they are not seeing the belugas actively in the area, they play the Beatles underwater.
Yeah.
And apparently the Beatles attracts them. They've said they've tried other music, and the other music has not worked as well as the Beatles, but that when they play the Beatles, the belugas come swimming and flocking over. So take that for whatever you will.
Better than Revolver or vice versa?
I don't know. You know, I asked that question, and he just sort of laughed. He didn't really respond. So maybe that was sort of like his way of deflecting the question. Maybe that's something that only the people who are working in the field up there really know. You know, Helter Skelter probably does not attract belugas.
Probably not. Yellow Submarine, that would be a good one.
For obvious reasons.
Anything else, Matt? Any other projects that you want us to know about?
Back to the Viewfinder, the Expedia Viewfinder, we're doing some really neat stuff on the blog coming up. We just finished up a promotion called Storybook, which was in conjunction with the Expedia Storybook campaign, this notion of taking the trip you've always dreamed about. And that transitioned into this new project that Expedia is working on called Throwback Thursdays. And the idea is you submit on Thursdays, you hashtag a photo, an old photo from a vacation that you still remember, you still dream about. It was perhaps a life-changing vacation for you. You submit the photo on Instagram. Obviously, you just post it on Instagram. You tag Expedia, and you include the hashtag #ThrowMeBack. And every week, Expedia selects one photo to essentially reward the photographer with vouchers for a trip to recreate the image in that photograph. And so it's cool because if you win, obviously you win free travel. But it's also really neat because so many times people just get into the whole ego thing of posting a throwback photo and leave it there. Well, this obviously is sort of designed to give you the opportunity to go back in time, essentially, and create a new memory. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. My Throw Me Back photo, and by the way, we cannot win as bloggers, but we as Expedia Viewfinder bloggers, I should say, other bloggers can win, so submit. But my photo was an image from my wedding, which was in Maui, and it just so happens that independently, my wife and I had a chance to return to the very same spot where we took that photo and got married 10 years later. So I'm actually working on a story about that right now, but it was kind of cool to essentially throw ourselves back to this wonderful memory with the progeny of the relationship, obviously with what this marriage has produced in our two daughters. And they actually, despite their ages, 5 and 2, they got it. They were like, whoa, this is really cool. So you guys stood here and you got married, and then you danced here, and it was great. We went to the bar in the restaurant where we got married, and while our daughters had milkshakes, my wife and I had Mai Tais, and the 4 of us played Go Fish, and that was the way we commemorated the throwback. But really, really a cool experience for us, and a really neat promotion that runs, I believe, through into the fall. So for more about that, again, just post to Instagram, tag Expedia, that's @Expedia. Hashtag for the photo is Throw Me Back, and you will automatically enter yourself to be a part of this promotion.
Very cool.
I like it. So should we do tips?
Sure.
Are we at that point?
Absolutely.
All right, I will start.
I'll go first. I have a good one.
Oh, all right, Gary, bring it.
So I just discovered this product. They've actually done a couple of Kickstarter campaigns, and the moment I learned about it, I instantly bought it. I went online, so it's going to be arriving soon, and it's called Triggertrap, Triggertrap.com. And what it is a little dongle that hooks up to your smartphone, so it'll hook up to an Android phone or an iPhone, and then there's an app that you run on the phone that will control the shutter on your camera. Now that may not sound like a big deal, but it allows you to do all sorts of very creative and interesting things. For example, you could have it control your flash, and you could turn your camera into a high-speed camera where you can do stuff like capturing a balloon bursting, because it will use the microphone and other sensors within the camera to trigger the flash. It can do things like it has one module, you just click it, and it will do a series of images on your camera to capture star trails. So it may take 30 different images where you're capturing a little bit of star trail, and then you can merge those later on. Most cameras have a limit to the number of bracketing photos you can do. And I think the built-in number is usually, like in my camera, it's 9. And it does it by increments of 1 stop. With this, by letting that control the shutter, you can do up to 13. So if you're doing high dynamic range photos, it can be a big deal. So there's a whole host of really creative things that you can do by letting your iPhone be a sensor and be the control for, instead of just a regular shutter release cable. And the best part is it's relatively cheap. It's out of the UK, and they charge £23, or it's like $40 to get the Triggertrap mobile cord. The app on the iPhone is free, and then for an extra $10, you can get the thing that will actually control the hot shoe on the camera and control your flashes as well. So for a relatively small amount of money, it lets you do just an amazingly cool array of things. I went and purchased it, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you more about it when it actually arrives. Triggertrap.com.
It sounds really cool.
That's really cool.
Did you have one?
Chris, you talking to me?
Yes. Did you have a tip?
Okay, I do. I want to share this little secret. If any of you stay at Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants, that's their official name, and you are not following them on Facebook or Instagram, you want to get right on their Facebook page, because they do something that's called like a secret word or a secret password. And they released them, or they released it this summer. They released it in July. And so they have a secret password that if you use it at checkout, you can instantly get upgraded to you could get a suite upgrade, free valet parking.
You said check out. I'm assuming you meant check in.
Check in. Yes, thank you, Chris. When you check in at a Kimpton Hotels, give them the secret word, and you can get all these upgrades. So here's some of the things that you can get. Suite upgrades, free valet parking, free tickets to local events or museums, wine, a local amenity, cocktail vouchers, free breakfast, or possible free movie and popcorn. And all you have to do is mention the secret word. So get on over to their Facebook page, Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants, and you will find out what the secret word is, so that if you are already staying at a Kimpton, you can get those cool upgrades.
If you get on their mailing list, they're doing a summer 20% off sale right now.
Nice. I actually really like Kimpton Hotels.
I do also. And if you're a pet owner, if you're a dog lover, then you also can take your dog with you to Kimpton Hotels because they are dog friendly.
Which we will be soon, right after this Hawaii trip. Fingers crossed.
Congratulations.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Secret words always make me think of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, I would have gone with Groucho Marx, but that's just maybe that's a age difference there. My tip will be theflightdeal.com, and the Flight Deal is just a site to help you find flight deals. So, for instance, Jen, I was looking on your behalf for flight deals that they've had recently from San Diego, and they had a $227 flight deal to New York City, to Newark Airport from San Diego.
Ooh.
So they can have some good deals. You can also watch their Twitter feed where they have the same information. Or what I did is I took their RSS feed for San Francisco and dropped that into If This Then That, so that I get emails only when there are flight deals specifically for San Francisco.
Now, Chris, is this the same thing that I saw? I think it was on Mashable. Is it an app or is it a website?
It is a website.
Okay. Then it must be different than the thing that I recently
They may have
saw.
an app, I don't know, but it is a website.
Okay.
Can I do a second pick?
No.
Matt hasn't done it.
Let me do
This
mine.
one's so good. All right.
And then feel free. My tip's real simple. It's something that we are excited to use in the field this week at Disney World. It's a company called Safety Tat, SAFETYTAT.com.
Mm-hmm.
They are removable tattoos that you can put on your children, and they have a space on the tattoo for you to write in your cell phone number. And obviously, no parent wants to travel with children and run the risk of misplacing them. But if, in fact, you do misplace your child and your child is wearing one of these safety tats, it is very clear, especially if your child knows, here's my safety tat, how whoever finds your child might get in touch with you and reunite your child with you. So we've got them. We're going to put them on the girls every day when we go to the park. And, again, worst case scenario, at least we know that the kids have our phone numbers on them, physically on them, so that if they do get misplaced, we can find them again. So again, Safety Tat for all of you families traveling out there, something to consider, because you never want to misplace someone as cute as that over there.
You're doing the temporary tattoos just because you may change your phone number?
Yeah, exactly, right.
Well, Matt's daughters are pretty young, so they might not. Yeah, somebody just woke up here. She's waving.
Hi, Cora.
One of my first travel memories was letting go of my father's hand at Disneyland when I was 4 years old, and reaching up and grabbing his hand again and looking up and finding it was some other man. I had stopped to look at the Mickey Mouse hats, I think it was. And my family had walked on without me.
So the kids club at Atlantis taught Cora my phone number when she was 3, and I've been reinforcing it ever since. So sometimes she has trouble with the area code, but if you give her a second, she will get the phone number. But the other thing I taught her was to go, if she gets lost, to go find another mommy, and to go look for another mother and tell her that you need help. And it was so funny because we were at Legoland with some friends, and they were reviewing their safety procedure when we got in, and the family told their kids, who were older than Cora, they were more like 7 and 10, to go find an employee, to find somebody in uniform, to go get help. And Cora just looked at me and she said, "Mom, I think their plan is better than ours. Can we do theirs?" But she forgets that when she was 3,
True story. I was 6 years old once, and I lost my mom at a department store. I walked.
And we lost the end of Gary's story. And he's gone.
How sad! I was riveted.
This is that moment, the driveway moment, where you keep people coming back for next week. There's Gary back.
Gary, finish your 6-year-old story about when you lost your mom. Gary?
Nope, he doesn't hear us yet.
Well, Chris, I've got 5%, so you might lose me in a second too.
Just in case we don't get Gary back, and we lose Jen, where can people find you on the internet? What's new at jenleo.com?
You can find me on Twitter at jenleo. Jenleo.com needs to be refreshed, like Matt's Post-it notes of his thing. But I'm going to be putting up some Palm Springs deals on Jenleo deals in the next couple of days, and then you should see a lot of Maui pics at Jenleo and on Instagram at Vegas Jenleo this week, because we will be in Maui for a week.
And Matt, we heard whalehead.com. Are there other places that people can find you on the internet?
Whalehead's my personal site. The family travel blog is at wanderingpod.com. Again, open reference to a family of whales that travels there. And I'm on Instagram. It's my name, Matt Villano. I'm on Twitter at both Matt Villano and Wandering Pod. And you can find me on Facebook as well, especially for the blog. Wandering Pod's got a Facebook page up there.
And coincidentally, I'm thinking of naming my office the Pod Cave. So, Gary, are you back yet?
Chris, Cora's waving at you right now. She requested that we go to your picture.
Hi, Cora. Gary, I don't think we have back yet. Gary, would you care to do charades to tell us what's new on everything there? Nope. Gary doesn't have audio. Amateur
You
Traveler.
can find. Wait, we
just
gotta
so
tell.
you. So Gary can be found at everything-everywhere.com, where I'm certain he won some other new award this week. And find his wonderful pictures of northern Canada. He said it was very hard to take pictures there, even from a plane, but some great pictures coming. Matt, just for you, the last episode we did of Amateur Traveler was with Jason Cochran from Fromers about Orlando. So we talked about both Disney World, all 4 parks there, and the 2 water parks, and also the 2 Harry Potter parks, which you're probably not visiting as much this time.
Not this trip, but that's awesome. I'll check it out on the plane.
With that, we will end this episode of This Week in Travel. Stay tuned next time, where we get to hear what happened to Gary as a child, because I know you won't be able to sleep until you know that he was safely found and was raised, in fact, by a pack of wolves in northern Wisconsin, which a lot of people don't know.
Thanks for having